Welcome to Fun and Games Side Quests. Every episode is a different host sharing a video game they love and why they love it.
Check, check. This thing is on. Hi, everyone. This is Matthew Krol here, pronouns he, him, and I am the cartoon on the internet you may have seen on the YouTube channels Extra Credits and Extra History. I am the showrunner and narrator over there, and I am so excited to talk to you all today, off the cuff a little bit, about a game that launched onto my top 5 games of all times list since it debuted on April 30th, 2021. And it has refused to let go no matter how many other cool games come out. It's not shakeable. I'm, of course, talking about the Housemarque developed classic, Returnal. Though, quick disclaimer up top, I'm going to try my darndest to not spoil anything past the first biome. So, here we go. I know a lot of people bounced off this game hard. I was one of them. I was so pumped for this game when it was announced because it was back when the PS5 launched in November 2020, and it didn't really have a ton of exclusives outside the actually phenomenal like demo thing of Astrobot's like little thing with all the PlayStation stuff in there. But outside of the remake of Demon's Souls, there wasn't a ton that I really wanted to play on the PS5. I was lucky enough to have Sony like get me in a raffle to be able to buy one, so I had one at launch. And I really was looking for something that could push the limit that also wasn't a remake of a game that I'd played before. No shade to Demon's Souls, of course. That game is great as well. But then Returnal hit, and it was something that I think is a bit just next level when it comes to not only game design, but games, as an art form. Obviously, all video games are an art, and designing games itself is an art form. However, this clicked on so many different levels for me. If you're not familiar, Returnal is the story of a future astronaut named Celine, who basically disobeys an order as she's flying her one-person ship to try to land on an off-limit planet known as Atropos to find a strange signal only known as the White Shadow. As she's trying to land, something goes wrong and she crashes, and then you wake up on the planet's surface and your adventure begins. Now, a couple things here that made me know that this game was going to be special from the jump, and that is there is no start screen. There is no, especially because the PS5, no huge load times. You start, that cutscene happens, and then you are in the game. There is nothing around you. Like there's no UI in that sort of way. You exit your ship and you're there. You're outside and you're in the first biome known as the Overgrown Ruins. And from there, it is a roguelite that basically has you trying to get to this radio signal, this white shadow that you don't know. And this game is brutally hard. I love bullet hells. I actually really liked what Housemarque did before with the game Resogun on the PS4. So to see them take their sort of bullet hell just chops and run a 10K with it was just lovely, because you're thrown into this just rainy, dismal jungle with these alien ruins, very Geiger-esque throughout. And you are fighting like wolves with a bunch of like tentacles and squiggly splooches sort of around, and big giant beasts that almost look like what if a rune bear got infested with a xenomorph. And you find very quickly, or at least I did, that I did not get far. And I died. Okay, it's a roguelite, right? Like, that's what happens. You find more items to then get through your randomized runs. The different, tile pieces build the levels each time, etc. Except the thing that really hooked me here was that it's not just a gameplay mechanic. Kind of like Hades before it, though I think I like this treatment slightly better. The looping element is as much a part of the game's narrative as it is its mechanic. The core loop is the core loop is the core loop is the core loop, so to speak. Because Celine wakes up right back at the ship, but she remembers dying. And so you go again. And this time you find an audio log on your way of a Celine that you don't remember being, leaving a note for whoever will find it. And you keep going, and you'll die again, you'll find more stuff, you'll die again, you'll find more stuff. Eventually, you'll start coming across bodies of you that have died in these overgrown ruins. And you start to realize how much more is going on. Between each death, you also see like very brief flashes and cutscenes of either sort of like illithid nightmares or a moon or a farmhouse or being underwater. The farmhouse being specifically of note because as you're running through, again, this alien world, you will eventually run into what can only be described as Celine's home on Earth, like etched into a wall. But it's like it's a farmhouse. And eventually you get the key, and there's some first-person elements. This whole game is a third-person shooter. There's first-person elements in the house that would rival almost any survival horrors game for just creepy factor, jump scares, abject psychological terror. And if you can't tell by now, these are all great tastes I've had elsewhere, but I've never seen them mashed so beautifully into one interactive experience. And I will say, when I first picked this game up, I was incredibly frustrated. I was stuck on the first of 6 biomes for a long time. I think I put 89 hours into this game, which sadly my gaming time I don't have a ton of, but that's a giant chunk since it's been released for me. And the way that this game kept me hooked, even though it was truly kicking my ass, was something that I just hadn't experienced in forever. And it was all the ways that the game treats sort of every element of a roguelite, right? So obviously, as you go through, you better yourself in different ways, but when you restart, you don't have anything. In fact, the only thing you keep with you is a currency known as ether, which then lets you, at the beginning of the first level, unlock new things that you'll be able to find throughout your runs. Very classic roguelite stuff, right? But the ether stays with you between runs. And then the only other things that do are sort of like traversal mechanic elements that you'll get as you pass through. Eventually you'll get a grappling hook, or you'll be able to go underwater or survive in sort of the more toxic environments. And those obviously let you explore areas that you were locked off to you, even if you're running through them for the 50th time, which is always a delight. But then it goes further because the way it even deals with things like risk reward that a lot of roguelites do, but this is so thematically tied. So if you think your run's really good, you can spend it on entering an alien device that lets you resurrect once for your run. There are also alien parasites that literally attach to your spacesuit. The graphics are absolutely gorgeous, by the way. So every one of these you actually see on your person as Celine's suit gets more and more beat to shit as you're playing the game. And they give you something beneficial, but also detrimental. So the little space bucks, I can never remember what they're called, but the little yellow things you can spend at like machines as you go through the game to upgrade all of your equipment. Those, like, say you have a parasite that's like, oh, those will last from killed enemies for 5 seconds longer, but now you take fall damage. And so you have to do this constant weight of, is it like risk reward systems that while you're trying to survive a very, very difficult bullet hell. On top of that, the way health works is it rewards you for not getting hit by when you collect the health resin. If you haven't been hit in 3 times, I think, it ends up making your life bar bigger. But if you're getting hit all the time, your max health will always stay roughly the same because you'll keep getting it refilled and knocking it back down. So it really pushes you for perfection in small ways. Same with it's kind of a Gears of War-esque reloading mechanic that, depending on the weapons that you use, if you reload fast enough in the little like active reload bar, then your weapons will be a little bit more powerful. And if you don't get hit for between many different kills, you get different abilities sort of that you can use, such as sort of an echolocation to know where enemies are and all that jazz. And if that wasn't enough, sorry, I'm just vomiting cool stuff at you, but I am very pumped to talk about this game. If that is not enough, there's also tainted resin and tainted chests, which actually is basically a roll of they're called malignant, if I remember correctly. And we'll get to why that's important in a moment. Or actually not, because I don't want to spoil the game. And that is basically another risk reward system where it might cause a system failure in your suit that is a permanent or a near permanent detrimental effect that you can fix if you, say, kill 50 enemies with a melee weapon or, collect 2 items or something. If you stack 3 of those malfunctions, those suit malfunctions, I believe the 3rd one becomes permanent. So you have to also balance that. Of course, there's elements and parasites and other things that make having those actually helpful to you. So your builds you do at every run can be something completely different, and you'll start finding your like combination of weapon and items and overloads and parasites to do all sorts of different cool builds in what is one of the tightest third-person shooters I have ever played. That is wrapped in a narrative that it was one, I don't want to spoil it, but every name of everything in this game means something deep and meaningful to Celine, the character, and the trauma that she is experiencing again and again and again and again. And there's no moment in this game that is wasted. Oftentimes in a lot of experiences, games will hit really hard on a couple different elements, but then say a UI might feel out of place, or, you know, the mechanic is really great, but the narrative is kind of meh, or it doesn't fully connect. You know, you hear the term, the buzzword for a while was ludonarrative dissonance. I would say this is ludonarrative harmony. This is perfection of all elements of an interactive experience working together as a whole, that I am actively fighting telling you more about the plot and the way that it teaches you different things about what's actually happening, because it was one of the most rewarding experiences I have ever had with media. It's also not truly, in my opinion, a real like Dark Souls get good situation. You will run into walls, but if you keep playing the game like any good roguelite, you will be rewarded with stronger abilities and things you can find in your runs, and runs will become better and better, and you will push forward. I don't think I got good at this game till probably the third biome, and I was punching my head against a wall against Frike, the first boss, who now I play against him and I can just walk all over him. But it's so funny how that changes as you sort of keep playing a game. Also, I do want to shout out the creature designers and the boss designers in particular, because there are a bunch of bosses in this game. I don't want to spoil too much, but they range from big scary alien in a room to classic rock piano playing Geiger alien. I know that sounds weird, and if that sounds remotely enticing to you, and I want to say specifically, it completely works. I know I said things that don't sound like they'd make sense together. This game manages to marry so many elements beautifully, seamlessly, flawlessly. So I guess if I am sort of wrapping up my rant here, I will say this. No game in recent memory has affected me more as a straight up player of an experience and viewer of a narrative so perfectly and so well balanced on a flippin' knife's edge than Returnal has. It is now available also on PC. I feel like I'm selling it now. Well, maybe this whole thing is that, but I'm not getting paid, but maybe they should look into that. No, but I believe the PC port came out and it had some problems, and I think it's been better optimized and fixed now. So there's actually, even if you don't have a PS5 and you have a gaming PC that can handle a lot of glowy bullets, I think this is a game that will reward your time and effort and, dare I say, punishment with one of the most meaningful experiences that you can have in gaming. And I want more and more and more people to play this game. It deserves to be far more popular than it is. And I jumped at the chance to do this show because it gave me another opportunity. I've tried to, sprinkle it into episodes of extra credits here and there where it made sense. But I will scream this game's excellence from the rooftops. I love Returnal. It is one of my favorite games ever made. And I truly believe that it can be one of yours as well. So I guess that's my pitch. Thanks so much for having me, and happy gaming, everyone.
Do you feel like you're the only person in your circle who wants to go deep about video games regularly?
We were like that too, until now.
Welcome to Crossplay Conversations, the brand new bi-weekly topical video game podcast from Luke Lewis,
Joseph Hooper,
and Jacob McCoy.
With many years of breaking it down separately on shows like the Left Behind Game Club, Player Podcast, and Lukewarm Games, the gang is finally coming together to publish their gaming group chat in audio form every other week.
Expect roundtable reviews of the latest games, profiles of upcoming indies, and insightful conversations about essential topics in the video game industry. All with a mostly positive, insightful, and fun style.
Crossplay Conversations debuts on August 1st with brand new episodes hitting every other Tuesday. Help us out by subscriing on your podcast platform of choice to get the first episodes delivered straight to your feed.
And follow us on Twitter at Crossplay Convos for updates about the show.
Cheers and happy gaming.
CPOV. CertainPOV.com.